last update, you may have seen that this thing still didn't crank. So, what was going on? I'd crank it, and all the lights would go out. You hear your starter, solenoid click a couple times, didn't hear it every time. Makes it seem like the battery's dead. Well, I know the battery's good, so I'm thinking ground. So I'm removing all the ground bolts and cleaning them up with a wire brush and seeing if maybe that's it. So right now I'm removing the ground. This is the main ground on the engine block. It is, I would guess maybe 14 gauge. I don't know. It could be 12. I don't think it's any bigger than that. I'm gonna remove that, clean it up. It is, you know, just looking a little greasy. I don't know. I hope it's grounds. I don't know what else it could be. But this main ground, it goes from the negative battery cable to the block. It is the big, thick wire. If you have an S10, you're going to be able to tell what it is because there's just not that many wires. All right. Got the nut off. Now it's going to get it out of the socket. Is that our issue at hand? I don't know. Loved if it was. So what there's just a stud on the block for this. I'm trying to get the washer and everything off. Well, it is kind of dirty. Dirty enough to create an issue? That I don't know. So this is stuff and then grinding. See, I mean, it's pretty dirty. Get some of that crud out there. Wire brush it, clean it the best I can. Let's see, I've already taken that bolt off. Where's the strap? You can see the ground strap right there. So I'm just going to clean up the ground strap, clean up the stud, clean up the nut and the little lock washer, and see what's going on. The other grounds, at least this is all I found. I believe this is all that there are. The other grounds I found, there's one behind the battery. I don't have the battery in, so it hadn't been an issue. You can see it right there. That is the other ground. This 10mm bolt took out. Used a wire brush, cleaned up the straps, the bolt, the area, everything. The other ground strap I found, and I don't think this would make a difference as far as starting the vehicle, but I found it, so I'm going to clean it up. It is off the fuel filler nozzle, and it is right there. You can see that bolt right there. Did the same thing, remove the bolt, wire brush the bolt, the washer, the strap, the area it bolts to. So hopefully with all that, we'll get some results. Did the main bolt look dirty enough that the car wouldn't crank? Well, I mean, it was certainly dirty. I don't know if it was dirty enough, but let's clean it up and see what happens. So I can't remove the strap all the way. Well, yeah, I mean, I can't all the way. I'll just pull it out from this mess of wiring enough to get a wire brush on it and clean it up. You can see it's looking shinier, better. Now I'm gonna see if I can get in there and get to that stud. There's a bunch of wiring. I don't want to mess that stuff up, even if it is in my way. I don't know if it would move it. Wow. What is that? That is not the thing I just unplugged either. It's just, it doesn't look like it's been plugged up for a while. I unplugged this to get to the ground bolt, but where does this go? Does it go in AC compressor? I mean, oh. Part of me thinks, like, could this be a problem having that this thing isn't plugged up? But another part of me thinks, well, this thing was probably hadn't been plugged up in forever. Some wires going back here, it looks like. So I don't know. Got unplugged somehow. And if it had been plugged up for the past 5 years, it would not be so dirty. But where it goes is the question. It's a single green wire. It goes to the main wiring loop. And then back behind the car. Yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one. And it could just be like maybe some option, some four-wheel drive option, something. Because this thing has not been plugged up for a long time. Just stuck in there. It's, well, I'm not screwing around. Let's get this thing plugged up. Stud is right next to the manifold, and so this brush is a little too wide. I don't think I have a brush. Let's figure out what I can get in there to get that thing crystal clean, whistle clean. I don't want it perfect. So the little crevice I couldn't reach for a while, I got a little bit of steel wool. I'm just gonna try to work it in there. But you know, like most of the bolt's clear anyway, so I think it's fine, but I like to get it all right. So I'm gonna see if I can get that steel wool in there, work it in, and get that last tight little area clean. Got the ground back, plugged up. I don't know, whatever sensor this is on the manifold. Oil pressure? No, would it be oil pressure? No, I don't know what it'd be. Some kind of sensor. Everything's plugged up, ground, tied back in. I'm gonna give another quick look underneath the vehicle, see if I see any grounds anywhere. See if I see any grounds on the firewall. It might be a ground there. They don't look very big, but you know what? Clean up all the grounds. I'm gonna get them all. I'm just gonna give it a once over, see what I see. Cleaned up this ground on the passenger side. It is a ground for the blower motor and I don't know, something else in the wiring harness. It's clean. I don't think it's gonna make much of a difference, but you know what? I'm here. I'm gonna do it. Isn't that unfortunate? More rust. This is right behind the driver door. There's a driver door right there. As I was looking underneath it, looking to see if there are any more grounds anywhere that might be hiding, I saw a bubble in the paint. I decided, hey, might as well poke at it. Poked at it, and you know, it's funny, like the paint's bubbled, the paint was secure, but there's nothing behind it, it's just a hole. So yeah, that's more rust in addition to what we have. I don't know what I'm eventually going to do with it. You know, I want to learn how to weld eventually. I don't have a welder, don't know how to weld, but this certainly could be a good learning project. It'd be nice to button this up. I mean, if I want to sell this, it'd be nice to sell it without a bunch of speed holes in it. I was thinking I was done on these grounds, and I was eating dinner. I remembered, hey, there should probably be some kind of ground on the firewall. So I looked around at the back of the engine bay, looking for a ground, and what did I see? Right there, a ground. It connects to, looks like the back of the cylinder head. I can't quite tell because it's down in all that mess. That one looks like it's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off, you know, rough it up a little bit anyway, just because I've done everything else. There's a ground right there, but that's to light to the hood. I don't care if that works or not. But we're gonna go ahead, we'll tackle this one too, since we've done everything else, why not? But really, the ground on the front of the block, that should have done it. I didn't do it. I don't know. I'm back to the starting block because it looks like a ground. It seems like a ground based on the symptoms, and that ground of the block, I would guess that's it. I don't know. We will find out. I just can't leave this thing alone, and I found 2 more grounds. All right, we're at the battery. If you go down near the battery, just gonna get a shot of it. See that bolt? There it is. And that one traces back up to the core support right there. And then there's another one on this side of the core support. I'm pretty sure these on the core support are probably headlight grounds, but I might mess with those anyway. There's one right behind the horn. See it? Right there. And there's one on the inside of the dash. My gauges don't work. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it's right on this mounting bolt for the dash right up there. I think it's just right in between. So I might pull that out. I've pulled some of these dashes out. I used to could have done it blindfolded. It's been a while, but I think the only ground I believe is right at that bolt. So I may check that one out too, because I'm gonna get all these things. So we've tried this thing a number of times. I've gone through all the grounds. Now I do wonder if there should be a ground towards the rear off the fuel pump harness. I have 2 wires that don't have an end, and I'm pretty sure one of them, you know, unfortunately I've done this months ago. I'm pretty sure one of them, I think it was a ground, a ring term that broke off. Can't figure out where that thing should go. But I'm pretty sure I remember it breaking when I first started this months and months ago. Anywhere it looks like, I don't see a ring term anywhere. I don't see where it should bolt to. I don't know. I mean, could it have mounted to the tow hitch? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know where that ground goes. That could be part of my problem with the fuel pump. That's an issue for another day because that should not affect the car cranking. Hooked the battery up. Had to pull it out of the vehicle. Turn the key. We're going to see what happens. Radio comes on. Dome light's on. Good sign. Now we're going to try it again. Will it crank? Oh, it finally cranks. Wow, don't neglect your grounds. I'm guessing it's probably the ground that's on the block. Doesn't matter. Don't have fuel. No, I don't have fuel because I haven't heard the fuel pump prime. Fuel pump's not going to prime. I'm not going to get fuel. But the thing cranks. Wow, what an accomplishment. I mean, I wish it actually ran, but you know what? We'll take this one. Now that I've sorted out the starting problem and the turning over problem, now we can worry about the fuel problem. the fuel pump very well could be a ground. I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to be grounded. I just know there's two wires back there, because what they did, spliced in a tow hitch harness, and it ain't the best of jobs. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure I remember a wire breaking off that was a ring terminal of some kind of ground. I wish I could remember where it goes. I did Google it. Like, I went all the way to Google, like, trying to figure something out. And the vehicles that's old, you don't have much stuff. Most of the stuff is second gen S10s. I can't find much on a first gen S10. Somebody said there is a ground. I'm looking back there. I don't see it. So I'm gonna keep looking for that. You know, I know the fuel pump works. Worst comes to worst, maybe I try to, you know, hot wire up the fuel pump just to see if this thing will actually crank and run, because, you know, kind of a big deal. But man, it cranks over. Beautiful, beautiful thing. If you find yourself underneath a Blazer looking for the fuel pump ground, well, you know what? I'm going to help you figure out where it is. Now, if we only get this thing to focus. See that bolt right there? That is your fuel pump ground. The ground strap is on top. It is a 13mm bolt. This gives you a layout. We're pretty much right behind the license plate. I cleaned that ground up too. Now, I would love to think that maybe my fuel pump wasn't working just because of that ground. I mean, the car wouldn't crank because of the ground. I doubt it's going to be that easy. I will hope, though. So I do have some, like, wiring mess back here. There is a tow harness. Let's see if I can pull this thing out. So you can see this tow harness. And there's a couple wires hanging off of it that are questionable at best. I mean, you can see they just used some butt splice connectors. This right here is the tail light wiring. And it should come all the way across and butt into right here. And that's just how the taillight's powered. But they cut that and they spliced in this harness. And I don't quite know what's going on. I've used this harness many, many years ago, back when I first got this thing. Blazer's not great to tow with when it's got a 3/4 drop. And the taillights worked on it. But this wire, I think it might have been some of the wire they cut out because it's white, like the taillight wiring. You can see that end, it is cut. I don't think it's ever been used for anything. Now this other wire, this is kind of my mystery wire that I'm pretty sure was connected to a bolt. Now you can see the end looks like it kind of just tore off. I want to say it was connected to that bolt. Now that bolt holds in the gas tank cover. I don't think you could get a ring terminal hitting metal, because you know you'd have this metal cross bracing. Then you'd have the ring terminal. Then you have the plastic cover in this bolt. I don't know. Maybe you could get that done. But I feel like there was a ring terminal, and that seems to fit as far as like how long this thing is and how, like, if you pull it out, it seems to fit that one. I don't know. I did look through some older videos, which, man, is a great thing I have some of them. And I do see that white wire hanging down about right in here, right behind the license plate cover. And that bolt, or at least a bolt looks a lot like that, is connected to it. Can't exactly tell how it's connected to it. Ultimately, I don't think it matters. I'm going to hope that maybe my fuel pump works now because I cleaned up that ground. But what I'm going to do, this is the harness. I just pulled the harness wires, looking at the wires, you know, to get the color of them to figure out what is supposed to be what. But this is the wire, the harness that's supplying power. I'm just going to turn the key and test the voltage on. Now, I know that the fuel pump gets a signal. I don't know if it's a relay or for what. It gets a signal, like, to prime the pump right when you first turn on. Then that signal stops. So I need help with that so that I can have a multimeter on this and get the signal, or get the power voltage off each of those wires right when the key is turned. And that will let me know whether power's coming this way. Because if it is, well, maybe that ground did solve it. But it's probably not going to be that easy. I'm not going to be as naive as to think it's that easy. But that's where we start. We're just going to rule things out one by one. Because if I get no power through that harness whatsoever, well, then I'm going to go upstream, look at the fuel pump relay. Because it very well could be the fuel pump relay. Who knows what it could be? Any number of things. We're just going to rule different things out one by one. So I need to check what these harness wires are. But I had someone turn the key, because I know that it's supposed to get like a prime signal or something, the fuel pump. And I tested both those wires. One had a 10-volt signal, constant. The other, it had a 10-volt signal for a couple seconds and then stopped, which I think that seems like proper operation. So that very well mean that this ground at the fuel pump could have been the issue. I don't know. I mean, my next step is I'm going to connect this harness and turn the key on and see if I can hit a fuel pump problem. If the fuel pump doesn't prime, it makes me think, you know, when I pull these wires out of the fuel pump, that might have been my problem. That might have been what I messed up right then and there. But this is promising. I didn't think I'd get power this far back. So if I'm getting power back here, that should mean the relay is good. All the wiring's good. And so the issue is either, if it's not the ground, it's what I messed up with the sending unit when I pulled the wires out of the top. I shouldn't have, because I didn't realize there's a harness right here. And I ripped some stuff up. I thought it would all work, so I just put it back. But that does mean if the fuel pump doesn't prime this next time, that means I gotta drop this tank again. I don't want to drop this tank again, but I want the blazer to run, so sometimes you have to make concessions. I've pulled the gas tank out yet again, because we're going to do it once, why not do it 2 or 3 times? And so I wondered if my issue rested in those wires right there. I'd pulled that out, not knowing how the sending unit came apart. That's my fault. And so I wondered, did I put it in backwards? Did I put it wrong? Did I put it in, did I mess up somehow? And so I checked the continuity off of these 2 wires. There's a pink and tan wire that feed into this purple and gray. And one of these is to the fuel pump. One of them is just the fuel level. And so I tested the continuity from here to these pins. And, I know what goes to what based off of this. And the continuity tests are right. Like what I thought, what should be, it should be. So this seems to be correct. It is a little crusty, as you can tell. I don't know if you can quite see that. Maybe that is it. I tested the ground off what I thought should be the grounds. So all the wires are where I thought they should be. Everything is hooked up correctly. Nothing's backwards. That's my thought. Is something hooked up backwards. I mean, this sending unit, it is look a little gross. I mean, like, look at my fuel pump. That thing was brand new just a couple months ago. And it's pretty crusty now. I'm surprised at how quickly that happened. So I don't know. I'm at a loss as to what's going on. I don't know if I clean those terminals up, will that fix everything? Is it my issue? It's just not good enough connection. I don't know. I mean, I tested this fuel pump before I ever put it in to make sure it worked. It did. I heard it pump. I don't know if I need to, test it again. I don't know. I've done it once. I don't know why I need to do it again unless something's happened between now and then. I'm at a loss. I really thought that my issue would be this thing right here, that somehow I put it in backwards or wrong. I don't know. I mean, is it just that it's too crusty? It's certainly possible, I suppose. But all the wires are where they should be. They're not crossed up. I checked the continuity, and this is how you check continuity. You want to turn your multimeter to the ohms or the little infinity symbol. And basically what I did, I took one lead into this harness to, what I thought it should be. Put the other one to this pin here. And you can see my multimeter. I don't know if you can see that. My hand's in the way. Can I get my hand out of the way? Well, either way, I went pin to pin, and the dial on the multimeter, if you have a continuous circuit, it should go all the way to 0, which is what it did. So all my wires checked out. I don't know what's going on. I was hoping I would find a smoking gun. Unfortunately, I did not. So I tested all 4 pins, and 2 of them go to the ground. I test them off of the ground. Everything is continuous. I don't know. I mean, could it be a fuel pump problem? It certainly could be. I know a thing did work when I first put it in there. I guess the next thing I do, I could pull out this harness directly to the fuel pump and just test, maybe my connections there are messed up. I don't know. That'd just be one less thing I mark off the list of it is not this problem. Maybe power is getting to this pin and not through this connector. Maybe that harness is just too corroded. I don't know, but yeah, let me pull out this harness directly to the fuel pump, test continuity that way. That'll tell me something, maybe. Look at that. Now it's a little. I'm trying to hold it all, but I've got a continuous circuit. So I'm testing through the harness all the way to the plug that goes into the fuel pump. Now if I'm getting power all the way to the fuel pump, it certainly seems like it's a fuel pump issue. Now I did test this thing before I ever put it in, and it did. It pumped. I mean, I didn't run it for too long, so I didn't have it, in fuel, but it did pump. So it certainly is seeming like it's a fuel pump issue. Brand new fuel pumps have been known to be faulty. This one certainly seems to. If I'm getting power all the way to the fuel pump and the fuel pump's not pumping, it certainly seems like it's a fuel pump issue, and maybe I did this right. Maybe it's the fuel pump's problem. So now I guess I'm going to contact the company and see what they're going to do for me, because I don't know. I mean, it certainly seems like a fuel pump issue. I love that I have video on this product that I can go back and reference to see, hey, what happened here? So I know I tested this fuel pump. So I went back to the video and found where I tested it. And what I noticed was that when it worked, I had the red wire from the fuel pump on my negative battery terminal, the black wire on the positive battery terminal. And it worked. It did pump. Well, how I have it wired up in this truck is I've black to black, red to gray. But I've got it backwards. I've got it wired backwards. But here's the thing I'm going to rant about. Why in the world on this fuel pump is red the ground and black the power? Like, in what world does that make sense? It does not. So I think the simple answer here is that I've wired it backwards. Because I went back, I looked at the tested video, and when I tested it, I had red on the negative battery terminal, the black on the positive battery terminal. It does, I mean, Why is it, why do they have it color coded that way on this fuel pump? I don't know. I mean, was it made on backwards day or something? Like, it makes no sense why those colors are the way they are. But I think this is my issue. And so the next order of business, I need to clip these wires, rewire them, I guess the quote-unquote correct way, or at least, no, I'm not going to call it the correct way. It's not the correct way. I'm going to wire it in a way that it will function and work. And before I put this gas tank back in and button all this back up, I'm going to just put some power on the harness and just make sure that if the fuel pump pumps, like, I just want to see it pump fuel out. I just want to make sure that is working before I button all this up. And, you know, it's one of those things where, like, it pumps backwards. I mean, I don't know if the wiring's backwards, it pump backwards. I don't know. I want some peace of mind. But I think we figured out the problem. Thank you, the multimeter. Couldn't have done it without you. Great tool. Really, in all this, I thought I had somehow messed something up. I find solace in the fact that I didn't mess anything up. I did everything right. I can't control the fuel pump company that made the wiring colors backwards. Can't fix that. Can't help that. But now we know what's going on. And dare I say, we are dangerously close to this Blazer right here running on its own power. Actually moving out of this garage. I can't wait for it to get out of the garage. Can't wait for it to get out of my life, to be honest. I'm done with it. I mean, I just, you know, it's been nice. I loved it. I drove it for over 10 years as a daily. Drove it over 10 years, and it was beautiful. Didn't have air conditioning for most of that time. I don't care. I put a little fan in there. But I loved it, man. It was a great vehicle. But I just, you know, life moves on. I've moved on. I hope the Blazer will move on. I think in time it will. That's it. That's where we are. So we just got to get that taken care of. So I have dropped the tank and taken the fuel sending unit out. And I thought about, well, let me wire up and test this fuel pump to make sure, you know, it seems like it's backwards. Let me make sure, double check before putting it back in. But I thought, you know what? It's not working the way I've got it wired. The only way is to switch the wires. Like, there's no other way to do it. So I'm going to switch wires, put it all back up there, because, you know, nothing quite reaches. All the harnesses don't quite reach with the gas tank on the ground. So I've got it back up in there. The jack is holding it up. I haven't strapped it in yet, just in case things go awry. But I put the sending unit back in the tank. Tank's back up. Connected all the hoses. I do have a hose going to a fuel can, just because I want to make sure, like, it's actually pumping gas. And, well, I mean, first, I'd like to make sure it actually pumps. So I want to make sure it's pumping gas. If it's pumping, it should be pumping gas. One should follow the other. But I don't know, man. This build, it's been a thing. But I've done that. It is back in. I'm ready to turn the key. I'm hoping I hear a fuel pump. Because if not, what else is it? You know, I've got power all the way back here. I mean, there's continuity all the way to the fuel pump. Like, all the way to the pump. And you know what? I did not check continuity after. You know, it doesn't even matter. After I switched the wires. And I just clipped the wires. Luckily, I'd left a bit extra wire there. I mean, always leave a little service loop. Help me here. Yeah, I should check continuity. I mean, I guess I can always drop this thing again, because I've done it so many times now. Oh, and putting the fuel tank back in, there is a vent hose from the fuel filler neck, top of the fuel filler neck, down to the tank. There's a worm gear on it. I loosened it, and I pulled it back up the hose, tightened it back. As I'm trying to put everything back together, that worm gear is gone. Like, just, it's not on the hose. It's not on the fuel sending unit. It's not on top of the tank. It's not on the floor. It is gone. I don't know. You know, the tank dropped, and then it went back up. Where did that worm gear go in between then? I don't know. I thought about just, to spite the truck, running it without the worm gear, because it's just a vent for the fuel filler neck. But I just went ahead, got a worm gear ahead, and, you know, I've got a bunch of stuff. Put it on there. I'm not happy about it. Not a bit. You know, where did that worm gear go? Like, I was searching the floor. I was looking, like, everywhere. I mean, where could it possibly go? I don't know. But with all that said, the tank's back in. I've taken the battery. I've been switching between vehicles. I need to just buy a battery for this stupid truck, but I'm delaying. Now it's time to turn the key, and I hope I hear a fuel pump. Because if not, I don't know, man. At that point, I'm lost. I'm very lost. All right, there's a light in here. We've got power. I pulled the fuse on the radio because the radio makes some whirring noises. Like, I want to be sure I can hear the fuel pump. I don't want anything interfering, so I pulled the radio fuse. The fuel pump should prime. We're going to find out. Ha! That was a fuel pump priming. Why is it that on that fuel pump, red is ground and black is power? I have no idea. I mean, the next step is to turn the key. The fuel pump prime. Alright, so we are not getting, it's turning, but it doesn't seem like it wants to crank. I hear the fuel pump priming, but is it actually pumping any fuel? I mean, I only have a couple gallons in there. Is that enough? I don't know. It should be.